Well, hello everybody. It's been, I don't know, a couple or 3 weeks maybe. It seems like so long I had to remember how to turn the camera on. I've got a couple of pieces of good news. I'm sure the best piece of good news is for Ed, who this project's for, to see that I'm ready to glass bed it, making progress. But in the interim few weeks, I was sick. I ran a couple more security cameras. I took the Certified Tourism Ambassador class here in my new local community and earned that rating. I think it might hold me in good stead for potential clients in this area. You know, I mainly do web development. I built two websites since you heard from me last, one for a landscaper and the other one is for oil painting artist. But the best piece of good news is that I applied for and obtained a business license for McEwen Gunstocks. And so that was the main reason for buying this property. Well, that and getting out of living in the van. Not that that was a bad thing, but anyway, you know, a whole part of the impetus for buying this house with a shop was so that I could pursue that goal. So now with that license, I'd be able to apply for the FFL license. And with the FFL license, then I could market to the firearm community for gun stock work so that people can send me their gun. That's why you need the license. And that'll be great because I'd like to be at the $5,000 level for the work I do, and sales in the airgun world at $1,000 level are so few and far between. There's no way that could ever really be a business. So I'm super excited about that, and I'm excited to be prepping this for glass bedding. So I wanted to show you what it is I do. Oh, by the way, I had to put the stock back in the milling machine for an hour to work the trigger guard down deep enough to get full engagement of the bolts, and it just needed to be down a little deeper. And I just don't know why I don't get absolutely perfect copying of the trigger guard depth. It's very frequently something that I have to put down a little bit deeper, and I'm going to continue to pay attention to it. I've just done a bunch of really cool upgrades to the machine. It's working better than it ever has. I'm just seeking for the highest possible level of perfection I can get. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to protect the steel from the epoxy. We're going to mix a batch of epoxy, walnut sanding dust, thixotropic silica, called Cabasil, and milled glass fibers. We're going to mix that up to create the, I guess you call it bedding compound, but I like to call it, anyway, it's epoxy bedding. So we're going to wax the steel with a non-silicate wax. Hardall number 2 is the industry standard. I get it at Tap Plastics because there are Tap Plastics near me. One could mail it from there, I'm sure eBay or Amazon or anywhere. It's not a rare item. But what is special about it is because it doesn't have silicates, liquids don't bead. Your car wax has silicates in it, and liquids bead. And we want it not to bead so that we can put the PVA mold release on top of it. This creates basically an onion skin. PVA is polyvinyl alcohol. So we're going to wax it, we're going to PVA it, and we're going to mix up a batch of thickened epoxy, and then we're going to bolt it together. I did do several boltings. I'm going to use lawn Allens in here. These are going to be waxed too. The holes here are drilled oversized a little bit so that we're going to get a solid glass, you know, basically a pillar bed effect out of it. And I know that inside I'm going to be applying some bedding compound here where the forearm tabs are. And by the way, these are a different dimension than the old ones. Oops, sorry about that. And we're going to apply a little bit here and here, and a little bit here and here, and a little dab right in front of the main bolt screw. The main bolt screw is over drilled also, so we're going to fill that with epoxy, and so that will also create another like pillar bed effect, and then the back end gets filled. It is unfortunate that by having to go back in through the trigger guard opening several times on the milling machine, that a little additional cutting ends up taking place on the sides, and it ended up just the tiniest bit big in one section, or not big but wide. And you know, when the trigger guard's in there, once everything's done, it's actually nobody will ever see. But I try to make everything perfect, and I have had an idea for a long time, and I might do it on this project, of milling a block of aluminum, a solid block, to the profile of the Viral trigger guard, which this same trigger guard profile is used on a bunch of European guns. So it'd be a handy tool, because then I could glass bed this opening after it's been milled to the absolutely perfect dimension of the trigger guard. I think that'd be cool, but it's really a pick and a knit, and it is handmade, so there's going to be little imperfections, and this one is really hidden. It really won't be visible, except now you know about it, and it'll probably stand out. But frankly, I shoot a gun this way, and I don't spend a lot of time with it upside down looking at it. So, okay, I think I'm going to let it run, camera run, but I'll probably cut some of this out on the computer so that I can show you the whole process in about 20 minutes. I'm going to cover all the steel of the entire gun. This wax wipes off with oil, so just a regular oiling of the gun will wash this off. The polyvinyl alcohol, interestingly enough, while impervious to epoxy, epoxy can't wash it off, but water does. It's water soluble. Sometimes I don't mess with the PVA. Sometimes I skip it. It's really not necessary. It is another level of protection, though. You know, my gun safe is completely dry. I'm only at 1,600 feet elevation or so, maybe a little higher, but it is surprisingly dry up here. So I've got a heater in the safe, and one of those golden rod, or I don't know what they call it. It's a product for gun safe heater, and I've got that closet dry stuff, a tub of that in there. And in my last shop, that thing would fill up with water. I don't know, not super fast, but it would collect water. And I've had this one in there. I've been here 4 months now, and there's nary a bit of water in it. The stuff is totally drying. Alright, so I cut back in because I'm applying the PVA. So basically I dip it out of the bottle on a paper towel and just wipe it on the waxed metal surface and squish it into crevices. Just like that. Wipe on, don't wipe off. This gun is going to get a spring replacement and a dry tune when I'm done. So I'll have an opportunity to have every piece of metal part of my hand to polish and clean. So I'm not worried about the wax or the PVA one bit, nor should you. It's only a toy, in a sense. It's a tool, I get it. It's also sort of, we have emotional attachment to our arms. I don't like calling them weapons because they aren't weapons to everybody. They're art. Play games with them. Maybe they're a meditation. All right. So I'm going to move the camera over to the epoxy mixing station and see you in a minute.